I'm so excited to do this conversation with you and be invited on behalf of Womenpreneur to talk to you. Obviously, we met 3 years ago now.
It has been 3 years. Ages.
It feels like a lifetime. Yeah. So it's great to connect with you in person. And obviously behind the scenes, I've been seeing the great work that you're doing with your team. So I'd like to deep dive into that. But I always start with learning more about you. And the woman in front of me. You've achieved a lot, very successful. And they always ask, as children, what do you want to be when you grow up? So let's tap into kind of the beginning and how you've kind of come to your journey and career.
So I always wanted to be a lawyer.
You did?
I did.
Oh,
I did. There you go. I would be working with you now.
You would be in like my world. I didn't expect you to say that.
So growing up, I always loved debating, wanted to be a lawyer, felt a huge sense of what's fair and unfair in the world. And my grandfather was a great lawyer.
Got it.
So for me, I think that was the inspiration. So actually, when I went to university, I studied finance, economics, and I was also pre-law because I was planning to go to law school.
Gosh, that is amazing. Well, actually, it leads me on because you do fantastic content on your social media. I've been watching your reels. I love it. And one that popped up was the most inspirational quotes. And one of yours was, the only constant in life is change.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, there must have been a bit of a journey, lots of change, because you wanted to be a lawyer and you're still doing great work, but you're not a lawyer at the moment.
No.
So how has that kind of quote and mindset helped you in your career journey?
I think it's not just career, it's also personal.
Very true.
So I think on the career journey, it's been super helpful because the minute you get used to something, especially if you're like me, you start getting bored. And so the repetition of anything ultimately leads to boredom, which then leads to lower quality work than I like to think of, than I like to think I'm capable of or I aspire to.
Yeah.
So ultimately, by continuing to change what it is you do, right? Or if a curveball comes your way, it's an opportunity to learn, then you're permanently learning.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm in a state of learning, then I'm in a state of striving and excelling and really achieving the best I can achieve.
That's fantastic, because I think it takes a mindset, though, because for me, I used to be, and I've definitely gone through 2 years of life personal changes where I've had to force myself to accept that that is part of life. It's not going to be a tick box. It might be a straight line, then up and down and round and round. So I feel like you've built a mindset to accept when things change and don't go your way, and like how you adapt to that.
Well, I think I had to. Growing up, we moved around when I was a child, new schools, new countries, before the times of mobile phones or Facebook or WhatsApp or the internet.
Yes.
So you really just had to say, okay, well, I'm in this new place. It's changed. I got to just get with it.
Yeah.
And I think later in life, as I had children, I started realizing that there are no 2 days that are the same.
5 minutes change.
And then I can plan all I want. But hey, guess what? The more I plan, the more likely it is that there are going to be curveballs. So really stop and think about, it's going to change whether you like it or not. And the minute as a mindset that you embrace that, and you can say, okay, the only thing I can count on is that there is going to be change.
Yeah.
So that's going to be constant. Now, what's that change going to be? And when you approach it from that perspective, it's just a lot more fun.
I love it. And it doesn't feel heavy or like, I've done something wrong or it's
I
gone
knew that
wrong.
there would be change. I was right.
Okay, I'm taking that away for the rest of my life, particularly with children. I love that. And I think in that change from, I've seen my grandfather, amazing lawyer. Obviously, I studied law. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And now you're doing great things, not within the legal field, but I'm sure you have to interact with a lot of lawyers in what you do.
Indeed, we do.
So I think it would segues well into kind of where you are now and the world of venture capital. I heard you speak in 2016, so I've been following you for a long time. Yeah.
What did I say?
Oh, well, there was another comment where you're like, if you really want to succeed, have your eyes and your heart open to opportunities. And I think shortly after that, Global Ventures was formed.
Yes.
So my question was like, what opportunity did you see and what made you start this amazing business that you're doing now?
So if I go back in my journey, it was very much a path I could have not ever thought of designing for myself. And I wanted to be a lawyer, ended up studying finance, economics, was pre-law, had an incredible professor who was also a law practitioner who once said that if you don't love studying the law, you're absolutely going to hate practicing it.
True. Yeah, it's so true. Wise person.
So the next day I dropped law. I was like, well, I definitely don't love I get 4 pages into reading a case of 40 pages. And I'm like, I can tell you what happens at the end. Why do I have to read the other 30? So back to my, I don't like reading and, knowing the point and getting there.
Yes.
I'd like to read something where I actually don't know the point at the end of it. So
Love it.
I ended up in a world where I wasn't going to do law. So then the question was, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. And so the opportunities that presented themselves were several, and I decided to go down the road of biopharma because personally I was having some health challenges and decided that, hey, I want to learn about this.
Love it.
So that was the first step in my journey where I said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing that. Then post MBA, I was hired by Booz Allen.
Okay, yes.
And they decided that I should come back to Dubai.
Okay.
Which I had moved here with my family as a teenager in 95.
Oh, wow.
And when I left university, it was, with the attitude of I'm never
Never
returning.
coming back. I was like, oh,
There
wow.
was nothing here back then. And so that was, again, fine, okay, this may prove interesting.
Yes.
Between my first and second projects at Booz, I had the opportunity to work with my father for a few
fantastic.
weeks in between the projects.
Yeah.
And then that turned into 8 years. Which
What?
if someone had said you were going to work with your father or you're going to join family business or, again, I would have said, of course not.
Yeah, it's
right?
not for me.
It's
Yes,
not for me,
yeah.
right? And then I landed there and I said, hey, there's an opportunity to do something amazing here.
Wow.
We scaled the business. We became the biggest interior company in the
Yes.
world. We IPO'd. I mean, all those things where if you had asked me just 2 months before,
Yes.
I would have said, not for me. But then it presented itself, and I said, well, what if this is an interesting opportunity? And let me try. Starting the yoga studios was another one where it was out of need. I wanted yoga for my health. And then ultimately going into angel investing and venture capital was where I thought I could just add the most value, given I'd had the opportunity to do the startup world as well as the scale-up world, and I could bring the two together. Another kind of curveball was when I had the chance to work in government, working at the Dubai Future Foundation.
Yes, yeah.
And that was something where, again, if you had told me as a young child you're going to work in government, I'd have been
Never.
like, never.
Not going to do that.
Every step of the way has been something where if just a little bit earlier someone had said, how about that? I'd be like, really?
Gosh.
And then really taking that mindset, that curiosity mindset of, well, what if this is interesting? What if I learn here? What if this works? And so similarly, while I was serving at the Dubai Future Foundation, I thought, hey, there's really no venture capital industry.
What year was that? What
That
time?
was 2016, 17.
Yeah, so for sure, there was,
And the year before I started my firm, there was $400 million of funding across all of MENA.
Wow.
All year, all deals. As one maybe Series C round in the Bay Area was the size of our entire ecosystem.
Whoa.
So I was just thinking, we need more VC money in the ecosystem because companies need to grow to create jobs. That doesn't happen without private capital. How does this not work here?
Yeah.
And so left with the intention of I wanted to start a firm for all founders across the region, a strategic capital partner that we could invest and help them grow and help them think through strategies and scale globally and really do these things. But it was one of these things where 5 years early, if you had told me, I'd be like, impossible. I don't have the guts for that. And so really, it's just one step at a time.
Yes. I'm hearing you. I'm like, what? You've gone from here to here. And obviously I've read about it and I've seen
all
this
over
stuff.
the world, all over the place.
But it goes back to what you said, that message that you shared at that conference in terms of having your eyes and your heart open to opportunities, that has sat with me because it's very easy to be like, I've never tapped into this. Why would I do it? It's too scary, too risky. But look what you've been able to build from it.
Also, and the most recent one was social media. Because
it's recent.
until 6 months ago, I've never had a Facebook, Instagram, nothing except LinkedIn.
What?
And LinkedIn because it's thought leadership.
Yes, yeah.
And I've never done media. Because unless it's about the firm or the companies, I'm not interested in doing media for media's sake.
Got it.
And that's just always been my mindset because as a child and as culturally we're raised that you shouldn't.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
It's not nice to appear.
Correct.
And then last summer, I got a call asking if I would do Shark Tank Dubai.
Yes.
To which I very promptly said, no thanks.
Just straight away.
Yeah, because it's not me. And then my middle child happened to be listening on the conversation because it was in the car.
Okay.
And he's like, why not? I'm like, Mom, it's media. He's like, Mom, do you know how much I learned from Shark Tank?
What?
And he's 13.
Yeah.
And I said, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's where I learned how to build companies and I have all these ideas. And he's very much an entrepreneur.
Gosh.
So I was listening to him and I said, which Shark Tank? He's like, the US one, because there aren't any in the region.
Thank you.
And so I said, you should do this. And finally, by the way, you get to do something cool.
Oh, everything else that you've achieved. You're pretty
Clearly,
cool.
I am not a cool mom. So I said, I was like, fine, you know what? Like after this back and forth and discussion, and I said, I can, really dip my toes into this. Open heart, to your point, like open my eyes to the opportunity, open my heart. And then from there, I discovered how little Arabic content there was in terms of the venture, entrepreneurship space. And so in January, reflected on how social media and specifically Twitter had really brought a lot of the English-speaking communities into the entrepreneurship and venture world. And so in February, we did a social experiment to see, what would Instagram look like for this?
Wow.
And it's just picked up tremendously in English and Arabic. Arabic is just, there's
huge.
so much demand. And so really keeping my own eyes and heart open to the opportunity to be able to teach and really build the ecosystem around us and build the community around us of entrepreneurs and investors and founders. Although I was so scared. I still get so scared.
You do it so well. Like literally the other night I was going through, hence why I picked up in terms of like the quotes and the content. It's so valuable because it's insightful. It's not too lengthy. It's easy to digest. Like if
my team tries really hard.
Your team and you are doing a great job.
I need this feeling of it's helpful to other people. Otherwise, and it's community building and. Otherwise, I don't see the
value. See the value. I can see that in you as well. So
it's very much, again, keeping the eyes and the heart open because it's a new learning journey for me.
And I didn't think it was that new at all because you've done a lot of content.
So we film for 2 hours every week.
Wow.
And in those 2 hours, we managed to make 12, 15 videos.
Fantastic.
Half Arabic, half English. Because it's all my work. There are things that, you're a master in communications and marketing. And if someone were to ask you a question, it just comes so naturally to you. So it's similar in the sense that this is what I do day in, day out.
So why not
for the last 12 years? And why not share?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And also actually a point that I wanted to ask is because I am seeing that you create insights and you genuinely want to educate people that might not understand anything about the VC world or the journey that they have to go through. You did a podcast 2 years ago. I stalk you, clearly. I know a lot about the content. I'm always watching what you're doing. And you talked about, one of the topics was like women in business and entrepreneurship and how do we encourage more women to be in business. I think the content you create as such a successful woman, you've done entrepreneurship, obviously you're running your business as well. So what are you seeing 2 years on from that conversation in terms of the ecosystem of female entrepreneurs? And are they getting the right exposure? Are they getting the right funding? Is there more to be done?
There are a lot more female entrepreneurs now than before. I think many of them are starting businesses in non-traditional female places, which is wonderful. So we see more women in fintech. We see more females in health tech and crypto. So we're seeing a lot of females in the entire sector, which is great. Our portfolio is 28% female founders or C-suites,
that's good.
which is how we measure it. And it's probably one of the highest in the world for VC firms.
Yes.
So we're trying really hard to work with the female entrepreneurs at the top of the funnel. So just making sure we see them all and engage with them all. But I still think I still wish we had more.
There's more to do. And also when you started your business, the pool was even smaller as well. So what challenges did you face and how did you overcome those challenges in terms of you setting up your business? Being a founder anyway is difficult, right? But I think also when there's a limited ecosystem of females to maybe mentor or get guidance from. So how did you overcome that when you started?
I ignored it.
Good. That doesn't exist. Yeah, tell me why.
I'll tell you why. Because I'm from a different generation.
Yeah, okay.
Because when I went to college, I think we were 35% female.
Yeah.
When I was working in consulting in the States, we were about 20% female. When I went to business school, we were less than 20% female.
So it kind of was your norm in a way.
So I never really saw it until it was highlighted to me.
Yep. Okay.
But because I grew up in it, and then I worked in interior contracting. So again, 90+% female, male, and very few female. So I've just gotten really used to it over time. It just hasn't bothered me when I was younger. No one told me it should bother me. We didn't have the whole equality. That it goes on today with young girls. And so it was just, you developed thick skin and you got on with it.
But the thing is, you do it, right? That's the thing. It didn't stop you, because sometimes the narrative can seem like, oh, it's not going to work for me. You know, the percentages are too small. You can always go the other way and see it as a blocker. But it's great that you're like, well, okay, don't really know much about it. I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway and be successful.
I mean, it's harder.
Yes. Yeah, we can't
2%
deny.
of VC funding goes to women.
2%?
2% globally. So
Whoa.
it's, yes.
Yeah.
It's probably, I think I decided let's go narrower over time or something twisted. But ultimately, less than 2% of VC funding is managed by women.
Wow.
Globally. And so it's a really tough position to be in that sense. But, for me, it's a challenge accepted. Like, this is what I feel I want to do. This is my purpose in life, is to work with founders and help them scale their businesses and help them grow. Then this is what it is.
I love that. I love that energy as well, because it's so important. So you obviously are a very busy woman. You wear multiple hats as well. I know that. And we talked about Zen Yoga, because you mentioned it in terms of the business that you started. So when I read about Zen Yoga and what you'd done there before you sold it on, obviously health and fitness and wellness is a big part. I think for a lot of women, typically, mothers having to wear multiple hats, run businesses, etc. Balance. My personal experience, balance can be really hard, and I can neglect that, if I'm being quite honest. So, how have you been able to consistently keep that, or if you have been able to consistently keep kind of well-being, balance, personal life, motherhood, all of the titles that you wear, and still smile? Because that's tough.
So a long time ago, before I had kids,
right?
There was a book that was written, and I received a copy before it went to print.
Okay.
Because a mentor of mine had written this book.
Ah, great.
And the last chapter of the book was called Being Good Enough.
Yeah.
And the entire book was a chronological study, a longitudinal study.
Yeah.
Over a 30-year period. Of, I can't remember how many thousand women that had gone to Ivy League schools in the 60s and 70s, right, and 80s-ish. And they were the first generation.
Yes, yep.
And it divided them into two groups. One group that had stopped working because they had children and wanted to fulfill those roles as best they could. Yeah. And one group that continued working even when they had children, because for one reason or another, they did.
Yeah.
Right. And back then, that was a lot less common than now.
Correct. Yeah.
And they went through what were the reasons that you would stop working. The book is called The Feminine Mistake.
I was going to ask the question. Thank you. Okay, because I need to read that.
It's called The Feminine Mistake, a pun on The Feminine Mystique, which was written many decades earlier.
Got it.
So ultimately, they said, the reasons I would stop working are I'm afraid of stress and depression and anxiety and right, and health and obesity, like all the different things you're afraid of when you are overwhelmed.
Correct.
And so it followed these women and their children then for 20, 30 years onwards.
Wow.
The book was published in 2005.
Okay.
Or 6, perhaps. So I'm curious to see what happened after. And it realized that for this segment of women, they've already gone to Ivy League. They're clearly type A woman, et cetera. Yeah. And so we're not talking about all women, right? But this segment of women that have this debate in their mind, do I, don't I? And have worked on their education and are motivated to work and have a career.
Yep.
The divorce rates were higher if you actually stopped working. Obesity was higher if you stopped working.
No.
Stress and antidepressants were more than 50% higher usage if you stopped working.
Really?
And your children's chance of going to a similar level school as you were actually much, much lower if you stopped working. And so I was reading this book and like, this is insane.
Yeah,
I hadn't yet had children. I wasn't even pregnant. It was said, I was thinking like, what do I do? And I'm reading this book and it's sharing these anecdotes about the mom that then fixes the child's science project after he's gone to bed so he can have the perfect science project in the morning.
Okay.
Or the mom that has to make the perfect cupcakes for the bake sale because this is now her identity.
Yes.
Or the tennis match for a child who's 12 years old that suddenly becomes the mother's psychological tennis
Yes.
match if he wins or loses.
Yep.
And the helicopter parenting that innately you will do if you are a type A woman that needs to stay busy.
have
and
to be
needs
busy.
you have to be busy.
Yeah.
And so you're too busy with your kids that ultimately their escapism becomes things like drugs. Their drug rate's much higher, alcohol abuse much higher if you actually stop working. So ultimately, you end up in a world. So I'm reading this, whether it's true or not true. The book has been debated on Amazon. I think it has either 5 stars or 1 star. People love it or hate it.
I'm buying it today.
but I was reading this book and I'm laughing out loud at these anecdotes because I could see myself becoming that person. So the last chapter, to answer your question, is called Being Good Enough.
Right.
And it talks about how if your kids walk out with mismatched socks, it's really not the end of the world. It's okay.
Yeah.
But we're raised as a generation to have perfection as our bar. That's the standard.
Yes.
And if anything is less than perfect, then we have failed.
Correct.
Or we haven't tried hard enough.
Yep.
And so if you can let go of that, then be good enough, do the things you want to do, enjoy life, and surround yourself with people that give you positivity.
You've saved me from many, many nights. I'm I didn't do this. The mum guilt as well.
Of course.
But it's literally
Working mom guilt is real.
It's real. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I feel it every day. But that is exactly it.
It's it. And I always think about working mom guilt and, my children are teenagers.
Yeah.
But I always try to balance it out on a month level.
Yeah, okay.
Because on a day-by-day basis, you've always failed something.
Yeah, you're right.
On a week-by-week basis, you're usually okay.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
I check in every week. It's did I do enough of this? Did I give enough one-on-one time here? Did we eat enough home food versus takeout? Did we, right? But on a month-by-month basis, I take those blocks and I try to hold myself accountable to those.
That's good.
But on a day-by-day basis, it would bring me to a level of anxiety that's not healthy.
That's really good advice, actually. I'm definitely going to pick that up because, day by day, I'm I definitely worked late and I didn't do bedtime. If you look at it and it still feels like it's constant. But that's fantastic. No, well, we cannot leave. I've got one last question. We cannot leave. So obviously, top 100 business women recognized by Forbes Middle East. So we can't leave the studio until I get 5 tips from you in regards to women that want, or men actually, that want to start and enter into entrepreneurship. What are the 5 tips that you would give?
Do something you really, really care about. Be passionate, because it's really hard.
Yeah.
And the days where that's really, really hard, it's that much easier to get up and get going if you really care about what you're doing.
Great.
That's the first one. The second one is just start, because I think that people go down rabbit holes.
Yep.
And
procrastination.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to boil the ocean.
Yes.
And I'm don't boil it. Just start. Just get going, right?
Yeah.
Start with something and then it goes. And you have no idea where it's going to go. So third thing is don't be attached. Don't be attached neither to your business nor to the product. To be attached to the problem you're trying to solve.
Okay.
The passion that's there. That's what you should be attached to. Not this is what it needs to look like.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that attachment will keep you going towards building that, not solving the problem.
Correct.
And sometimes they're not a fit. The fourth one is, I guess, surround yourself with positive people because you need it, even if it's an echo chamber for a while.
Yeah.
It's really hard when you're trying to start a business and everyone around you is telling you what a terrible idea it is.
And how negative and it's never going to work.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Surround yourself with positive people. Change your friends if you have to.
Cut them off.
And I think finally is read. I read a lot.
Yeah, I can tell.
I feel like it really brings different perspectives and really allows me to learn.
Yes.
And that's the journey. The journey of an entrepreneur is a journey of learning.
Constant, right?
And reading is incredibly helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Literally, I've taken so much away. I saw all of this and I'll go back to my phone and be like, you're doing great things. You've been doing great things for a long time. I've been seeing you behind the scenes for 4+ years, if not more. So thank you so much for what you give to the community, for the knowledge you share and the businesses that you're helping to grow and change the world. Yeah, it's fantastic.
They're amazing companies. Yeah. They're just fantastic entrepreneurs and incredible businesses. We're privileged to be part of their journey, to be honest.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.